Donc, vous avez pas une question là aussi, parce que by the time, c'est drafté ou drafté.
Samir, can I check? There is another window with my name. I don't know from where. Can you get it?
Yeah, somebody from my office must have logged, so that's not a problem. Sir.
I can remove it, maybe if you want.
Please remove, Virat. Please remove.
I'll remove it.
There shouldn't be any duplication because. So we are starting now. Hello and a very warm welcome to the esteemed panelists and valuable listeners. I can see that 50 people have already joined. I welcome you on behalf of the Trade Promotion Council of India, a trade and investment promotion body, which is at New Delhi. Today we will deliberate upon the topic India-Mauritius Comprehensive Economic Cooperation and Partnership Agreement, looking through the needle eye of the opportunities and implications. During this 1.5 hour session, a series of esteemed speakers will share their thought on the topic and its implication for India's trade. Let me quickly introduce you to the topic. India and Mauritius signed Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Partnership Agreement, popularly called as CECPA, on 22nd Feb 2021. CEPA was the first trade agreement signed by India with any African country. Both sides have completed their internal legal process, and this agreement has come into force also on 1st April 2021. This agreement intends to cover trade in goods, rule of origin, trade in services, technical barriers to trade, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, dispute settlement, movement of natural persons, telecom, financial services, and custom procedure, and cooperation in the areas. CEPA between India and Mauritius covers almost 310 export items for India, including foodstuff and beverages, agricultural products, textile, base metal articles, electricals and electronic items, plastic and chemicals, wood and other articles. Mauritius will also have a huge preferential market benefit covering 615 products, including frozen fish, specialty sugar, biscuits, fresh fruit, juices, mineral water, beer, alcoholic drinks, soft, bag, medical and surgical equipment, including apparels. As regard to trading services, India's service provider will have access to around 115 subsectors from 11 broad service categories, such as professional services, computer-related services, research and development, business services, telecommunication, construction, and education. So India has offered around 95 subsectors from 11 broad service sectors, including professional services, R&D, business services, telecommunication, financial and higher education, environmental, health, tourism. Our esteemed panelist includes Honorable Mrs. Hanumanji, High Commissioner of Mauritius to India, Dr. Srikar K. Reddy, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, Professor Ram Upendra Das, Head of the Center for Regional Trade, Mr. Bipin Menon, Development Commissioner, Noida, SEZ, and Dr. Pulok Gupta, Associate Professor, Service and Investment, Center for WTO Studies, Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. So may I now please invite the opening speaker for the session, Honorable Mrs. S.P. Hanumanji, High Commissioner of Mauritius to India. Excellency, during your talk, you may highlight importance of India-Mauritius relation, how CEPA will help grow the trade between the countries, the synergies and complementarity. Will it provide a window of trade to the India trader in Africa advantage? So, ma'am, the baton is yours now.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Samir Push. Dr. Srikar Reddy, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Bipin Menon, the Development Commissioner, Noida, Dr. Pralok Gupta, Associate Professor, Services and Investment, Center for WTO Studies, Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, Professor Ram Upendra Das, Head Center for Regional Trade, all the distinguished members of the TPCI who are present, and all those on the podium whom I haven't mentioned. Good afternoon and namaskar to all of you. So allow me first of all to thank the Trade Promotion Council of India for this laudable initiative to sensitize the business community about the CECPA, recently signed, as Mr. Samir Pushp has just said, between Mauritius and India. Let me also tell you that soon after the signature of the agreement, I have personally engaged in a series of consultations and interactions with various chambers and business communities of India. And the response I have received are very encouraging. The business communities are very keen in getting the details of the agreement, and they are showing great interest in tapping the opportunities arising under the agreement. So the interaction today with members of TPCI is yet another step in that direction. So ladies and gentlemen, as you already know, Mauritius and India share a special and unique relationship that is anchored on deep bilateral ties, cultural affinities, as well as common values and interests. This proven relation has been further reinforced over the years by high-level political interactions and signature of a wide array of bilateral agreements and MOUs in various sectors, including education, health, maritime security, ICT, financial services, just to mention a few. Our trade and investment relations have also intensified over the years. Total foreign direct investment from India to Mauritius for the last 5 years stood at more than 50 million US dollars. There are currently around 64 Indian companies and more than 7,800 Indian workers in Mauritius. India was the second most important trading partner to supply the Mauritian market in 2020, with export to the tune of nearly 670 million US dollars, representing an important surge of nearly 230% from the 2005 export figure. On the other hand, Mauritius export to India in 2020 was around 14 million US dollars. The trade and economic relation between our two countries stretched to new horizon last February, as you've just said, Mr. Samir Pushp, when the CECPA was signed during the official visit of the Honorable Jaishankar, Minister of External Affairs of India to Mauritius, and which entered into force on 1st of April 2021. It is a landmark achievement in our trade and economic relations, as it opens new avenues for the business communities of both our countries. It also provides an institutional framework that gives better predictability and certainty to our trade regime. We are confronted with an unparalleled international health crisis, resulting in the largest economic turndown since the Great Depression. As our countries are grappling to cope with this unprecedented economic recession, CECPA will help to focus on the post-pandemic economic recovery and create an enabling environment for business between our two countries to prosper, but to the mutual benefit of India and Mauritius. I would like now to share some information about the agreement, but Mr. Samir has just covered some of these. The three main components of CECPA: trade in goods, trade in services, and the Economic Cooperation Chapter. But the Economic Cooperation Chapter, which has been finalized, it will be incorporated within 2 years from the date of implementation of the agreement. But the agreement also includes chapters of rules of origin, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, technical barrier to trade, and dispute settlement. In addition, both parties have agreed to negotiate an automatic trigger safeguard mechanism for a limited number of highly sensitive products within 2 years of the signing of the agreement. With respect to trade in goods, the agreement improves market access by eliminating or reducing tariff on a number of products. You've just mentioned the agreement provides preferential access to some 300 products of interest to India, including tea, spices, beer, rum and spirits, special sugar, Ayurvedic products, plastic articles, iron and steel products, motor vehicle parts, furniture, amongst others. I'll just give you an indication of how the CECPA benefits Indian importers to source some 600 products at preferential rates, and which include special sugar. I'll give you some detail on this. 40,000 tons at 10% duty, which is currently 100% in India. Canned tuna, 7,000 tons at 0 duty compared to 150% duty. High quality rum, 1.5 million liters at 50% duty as compared to the existing duty of 150%. Beer, 2 million liters of Mauritian beer at 25% duty compared to 150% duty. Fruit wine, 5,000 liters at 50% duty compared to 150% duty. And garments, 7.5 million pieces at 0 duty. So I would like to mention that Mauritius is well known for its high quality and niche products. For instance, the Mauritian rum has been acclaimed globally and was voted as the best during the 2020 International Sugarcane Spirit Awards. In the same vein, branded garments which are sold in Europe and the US can be sourced duty-free from Mauritius. Another significant advantage under CECPA is that it offers a flexible rules of origin for a number of products. This is an important provision as it allows bilateral cumulation, use of non-originating materials to a certain percentage of the export price, and product-specific rules, which allows up to 35% value addition. This provision is particularly relevant in the context of value chain if you intend to take advantage of the vast African market. With respect to non-tariff barriers, besides providing improved access to the markets of both countries, CECPA also contains a framework to address any non-tariff barriers, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, technical barriers to trade, and trade facilitation measures. The agreement provides for the establishment of a high-powered joint trade committee, as well as subcommittees, under rules of origins, SPS and TBT chapters to ensure that any non-tariff barriers are sorted out as quickly as possible so that there is no impediment to trade. These committees will be represented at technical level from both sides. It also contains provision to support customs procedures to be applied in a predictable, transparent, and reasonable manner to facilitate trade. Furthermore, the chapter on SPS provides a framework for the parties to conclude bilateral recognition arrangements of equivalence on SPS measures. I must inform you that the Mauritian authorities have already approached the relevant Indian authorities on selected products, and Mauritius would like to seek equivalence. This includes, among others, seafood products, alcoholic beverages, and tropical fruits. The Mauritian authorities are also considering signing an MOU on equivalence under the TBT chapter. As regards trade in services, the agreement does not cover only trade in goods. It also provides for an appropriate platform to expand bilateral trade in services between Mauritius and India. Mauritius has taken commitments to open up 120 services subsectors, while India has committed some 94 subsectors. Some of the key sectors include professional services, engineering, education, audiovisual, and logistic services. So this opens good opportunities for Indian institutions, both in educational and medical field, to set up their business in Mauritius and explore the African market. The agreement also provides a framework to conclude bilateral agreements on the recognition of qualifications, licenses, and registration of business in areas of mutual interest. The CECPA, I must say, has a broader regional dimension, which could be of vital interest to Indian business, wishing to tap the vast African market. Africa represents a market of 1.3 billion consumers, which is projected to reach 1.7 billion by 2030. Africa's consumer spending is currently 1.4 trillion US dollars and is projected to reach 7 trillion US dollars by 2030 in view of the fast rising middle class and growing purchasing power. Indian businesses can team up with Mauritian businesses if they so wish and move part of their manufacturing process to Mauritius to benefit from preferential market access to the African market. This is possible as Mauritius has duty-free access to a market of 450 million consumers by virtue of its membership to the SADC and COMESA region in Africa. In addition, with the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement as from 1st of January 2021, to which Mauritius is a party, this opened market opportunities on a much wider scale. Mauritius could thus be an important gateway between India and Africa. The flexible rules of origin embedded in the agreement, together with a framework to address SPS and NTBs, would facilitate this process of value chains. I wish to highlight that Africa imported only 5.6% of its products from India. There are several products that India could easily export to Africa using Mauritius as a production base, thus benefiting from the preferential margin in the African market. As per a study conducted by the World Bank, Mauritius enjoys significant preference margin over its competitors in selected products, which could be partly manufactured in India with value addition in Mauritius, and which can thereafter be exported to Africa. These include, amongst others, medical devices, pharmaceutical products, paints, fabric, electric cables, aluminum products, plastic tubes, glass articles, furniture, household appliances, electric conductors, vehicles, cars, buses, and motorcycles, and optical fibers. We have also identified selected Africa countries which could which we could immediately focus on. These include Kenya, Madagascar, Mozambique, Botswana, Tanzania, South Africa, and Seychelles. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you that Mauritius is one of the best places to invest in Africa. Democratic principles, rule of law, and political stability create a conducive business environment for investors. Mauritius is ranked first in Africa and 13th globally in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business ranking in 2020. We are not resting on our laurels. We are continuously endeavoring to implement reforms and streamlining procedures to make Mauritius even more business friendly. I wish to highlight that Mauritius has one of the fastest transshipment facilities in the region. Consignments can be transshipped immediately from one vessel to another, provided all facilities are completed beforehand in a matter of time. The sailing time from India to Mauritius has been reduced to 7 to 8 days by the new India-Africa service launched by the Mediterranean Shipping Company. Moreover, Mauritius offers an attractive taxation policy with a harmonized rate of 15% for corporate tax. Companies are exempted of capital gains tax and tax on dividends. Import of machinery, equipment, and raw materials are exempt of customs duties. Foreign investors have the possibility to maintain 100% shareholding or joint ventures as they so wish. Companies investing in pharmaceutical products, medical devices, high-tech product and food processing benefit from a special incentive of 8-year tax holiday. I wish to emphasize that the government of Mauritius has recently embarked on an ambitious project to develop a pharmaceutical and life science park. The project is designed to encourage investment in manufacturing of medicines for the African region and also to stimulate research and development. Government is providing a series of incentives, including exemption on registration fees, land transfer taxes, and tax credits. Corporate tax of 3% will be levied instead of the usual 15%. Investors will also benefit from 8-year tax holidays. In addition, government has just launched an expression of interest from potential investors for another project, namely the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industry, focusing on the production of vaccines. The priority areas are COVID-19 vaccines, vaccines for immunization programs in Africa, and preventive vaccine. Here also, government is providing a host of incentives, such as exemption on registration fees, land transfer taxes, and VAT on construction. Investors will be eligible to a premium investor certificate and will be allowed a full tax credit on the cost of acquisition of patents. Companies engaged in the sector will also benefit from a reduced corporate tax of 3% instead of the usual 15%. In addition, government will provide a seed capital of 1 billion rupees to the Mauritius Institute of Biotechnology for the setting up of a manufacturing plant for the local production of COVID-19 vaccines and other pharmaceutical products. So let me conclude by saying that Mauritius echoes the spirit of India. The Indo-Mauritius people constitute nearly 70% of our population. When Prime Minister Modi visited Mauritius in 2015, he called Mauritius the Chota Bharat. I would say the ties are such that we can talk of India and Mauritius as one soul and two bodies. Mauritius is home to Indians, just as it is for Mauritians in India. The Mauritius-India relations is unique in the sense that it transcends from the mind to the heart. We are connected by our ancestral, cultural, and historical affinity. As a result, the landscape of Mauritius has an Indian, very strong, I must say, Indian influence. Besides English and French, Hindi is commonly spoken. Some people even speak Tamil and Telugu. Language and culture, therefore, would not be a barrier. The multilingualism aspect of Mauritius makes it even a more attractive investment destination to tap the African Francophone countries. The government of Mauritius is also facilitating import of labor in sectors where there is scarcity of expertise by issuing relevant work and residence permits. So I therefore invite you to explore the business opportunities that Mauritius can offer you in a safe and secure environment, which is further enhanced by the CECPA. With these words, I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency, for your intuitive thoughts and concluding it so well, one soul, two bodies, and Mauritius representing the true spirit of India. Thank you very much. I will come back to you if our viewers have some questions at the end of the session. Now, may I please invite Dr. Srikar K. Reddy, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, who is at the helm of the affairs and handling Mauritius also in his portfolio. I would like you, sir, to focus upon why this agreement is significant for India and what are the trade complementarities and potential between the two partners, and how India-Mauritius trade relations are faring given the current geopolitical context. Also, if you could please highlight the potentialities and how the trade per se will be doing after signing of the agreement, and also now it is fully mobilized. So the floor is yours, sir. Dr. Reddy.
Yeah, thank you, Samir.
Yeah.
Her Excellency Mrs. S.B. Hanumanji, High Commissioner of Mauritius to India. Professor Ram Upender Das, Head, Center for Regional Trade. Mr. Bipin Menon, Development Commissioner, Noida, SEZ. Dr. Pallav Gupta, Associate Professor. Members of TPCI. Good afternoon to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank Her Excellency for giving a detailed presentation on the India-Mauritius relations and also about the CECPA and also the opportunities which arose from the agreement. So I'll try to be brief so that to avoid repetition, because we have our lead negotiator in goods, Mr. Bipin Menon, who will be giving more details about the products which will be of interest to TPCI. Also, we have Professor Ram Upender Das and also Center for WTO Studies, Pallav Gupta, who were also associated during the negotiations. So I was privileged to be present during the signing ceremony of the India-Mauritius CECPA. I was a part of the delegation which visited Port Louis in February with our External Affairs Minister. So as Her Excellency mentioned, this agreement entered into force on 1st April 2021. So this is an important agreement because this is the first trade agreement India signed with any country in Africa. So as you're aware, Mauritius is a small economy with a GDP of around $14 billion and a population of 1.26 billion. And as Her Excellency has mentioned, we have excellent bilateral relationship with exchanges at the highest level, and also historical cultural affinities and people-to-people linkages. And also, we also have very good development cooperation. We are good development partners, and also in the field of defense and maritime partnership. So since India and Mauritius established the diplomatic relations in 1948, the bilateral trade and investment relationship have also grown steadily. So since 2005, India is among the largest trading partners of Mauritius. As Her Excellency mentioned, India is in the second position after China. So Mauritius imported around $5.6 billion worth of products in 2019. So India contributes 14% of their imports. China is ahead of India with around 16.7% of their imports. But Mauritius, somehow, India is not the favored export destination for Mauritius. So Mauritius exported around 1.87 billion worth of products in 2019. However, India is in the 20th position with only 1.3% of the total Mauritius merchandise exports reaching India. So Mauritius mainly exports to countries with which it has GSP benefits like EU, United States, and also in the inter-African regional trade agreements such as SADC area. And our exports, we exported like in 2019-20 around 662 million US dollars, and we have imported around 29 million from Mauritius. So we have a trade surplus of more than 630 million US dollars. So our Excellency has already discussed about the number of tariff lines. Like we are offering Mauritius 615 tariff lines, and Mauritius has offered 310 products. So for us, it is important in the sense that already Indian exports to Mauritius, close to 94% are being exported at MFN tariff of zero duty. So in addition to MFN tariff of 94%, so additionally we are getting 5% of the tariff lines on concessional duty, some zero and also some on tariff reduction. So we can improve our exports to Mauritius in these 310 items where now we have duty concessions. And similarly for Mauritius, so we are covering the trade of around 33%, close to 1/3 of the trade is covered in the 615 items. Currently, they are only exporting to India about 9 million worth of products. But however, India is importing close to 15 billion US dollars from the rest of the world for the same product. So Mauritius has huge market of India, so they can exponentially increase their exports to India in these 615 products. They can easily increase by multifold, maybe 3-4 times in a few years. So actually, there is a good response from businesses from both sides, as Her Excellency mentioned. So this is the third event I am participating. Just last month, we have done one event with the members of the Federation of Indian Exporters Organization, and also a second event with the agriculture product exporters and importers from APEDA, and also tea board and other spices board. So this is third such event. I thank the TPCI for taking this initiative and also inviting Her Excellency also to interact with our Indian businesses. So I think we need to inform our businesses about the opportunities which arise out of this agreement. So I would like to add some things which Her Excellency has already mentioned. So with regarding to services, while Mauritius has offered concession in 115 subsectors, India is also offered 95 sectors. So as you're aware, Mauritius, there is a bilingual province, like they also speak French. So Indian IT companies, there is opportunity to make Mauritius as a base. So at least to enter into the other Francophone countries in Africa. So Mauritius can be used as a base. And already the High Commissioner has explained about the investment opportunities in Mauritius and the ease of doing business. So Mauritius can also be used as a base for also assembly products from India, and also once you meet the rules of origin criteria. So from there, products can be exported to other RTAs within Africa, such as SADC. Now there is a larger continental FTA which entered into force from 1st of this year. So a lot of opportunities are there to enter the African continental market also from using Mauritius as a base. And also one good thing is now, like we're also negotiating a preferential trading arrangement with Southern African Customs Union, which is a 5-member customs union in Southern Africa. So now I think once we have this agreement with Mauritius, so I think now the Southern African Customs Union has also come forward to enter into agreement, and hopefully I think Mauritius will also act as enabler for India to also enter into other FTAs of Mauritius in the region like SADC, maybe ECOWAS, or also into the continental FTA. So Mauritius will also facilitate India's future trade agreements with these areas. So I think there are a number of new things like certificate of origin, e-certificate of origin, and also other aspects. I think Bipin Minal will explain to the members of the TPCI properly. So I think agreements, I think government negotiates the agreement, but end of the day, the businesses from both sides have to take advantage of whatever agreements we have entered into, because we can only give a framework, and also with stability of the trading regime, the end of the day, the businesses have to take advantage. I hope the TPCA members will also become enlightened during the session, and also will try to use the opportunities and also increase the bilateral trade between both countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy, for your insight and valuable time. Sir, let me take this opportunity to inform you that the webinar is live and all our members have joined the session, and the industry will be sensitized to the extent best possible from our end. So that's our result for doing this. Hopefully industry will benefit, and with the positive note that Indian IIT companies can use Mauritius as a base, let me invite the next speaker for the session, Professor Ram Upendra Das, Head Center for Regional Trade, CRT. Sir, you may start by focusing on agreement, how this agreement is significant in terms of Africa as a regional market. And you will need to highlight the agreement by serving a key entry to other African countries in light of the agreement they already have with the other in between the countries. And then, of course, investment issue between both the country and any other area you would like to highlight. Sir, you may start, sir. Professor Das.
Thank you. Dr. Shikhar Reddy, Joint Secretary, Department of Commerce, Government of India. Mr. Bipin Menon, Development Commissioner, Government of India. Your Excellency, that was a fascinating, overview which we listened to you. Thank you so much for such a detailed and comprehensive intervention. And Dr. Pralok Gupta from Center for WTO Studies. I am really delighted that this is happening because of various reasons. Samir, I will come to one or two questions that you have asked, but let me present before you how I see this agreement. Many would not realize that India-Mauritius CECPA, which is Comprehensive Economic Cooperation and Partnership Agreement, including both trade in goods and trade in services, is a game changer at the level of ideas and perspectives and the policy orientation. Why do I say this? I say this because in recent past, if you see, not only in India, but worldwide, there has been some degree of skepticism as far as trade itself is concerned. And that has got manifested in WTO negotiations, in trade wars, in the general trend of protectionism, and so on. So in that context, I want to situate this agreement. That is point number one. Second is, this cooperation agreement, which is essentially an FTA in trade in goods and trade in services, including rules of origin and SPS TBT, standard setting ecosystem. This also clears some cloud in terms of the resolve of Government of India with the rest of the world through formal trade agreements, FTA in general, as they are called. So there has been a lot of, doubts and, apprehensions, what is India's policy, what is India's way forward. So I think this agreement, signing of this agreement, and those who have contributed to the making of this agreement deserves special compliments, because in a context when the worldwide and here also the sentiment was anti-trade or towards protectionism, this is a very important outcome and statement on India's future policy making. It is also a major contribution when we talk of Atmanirbhar Bharat. And as our own Prime Minister and trade ministers and officials have always mentioned, that of course Atmanirbhar Bharat is about self-dependence, self-reliance, but it does not mean that we are arguing for an autarkic world where India will operate. No. So this agreement is an index to an understanding that self-dependence can coexist with international interdependence, and there is no contradiction. So therefore, because why I'm saying this, when I interact with the global community at the think tank level, sometimes official level, I find this, questions again and again coming, and it was not getting clarified. So now I have started using India-Mauritius agreement as an telling example that, look, India believes in this, India negotiates, and India signs, and India also implements. And therefore, you should see Make in India and self-reliance as a boost to India's global economic and trade engagements. So I see this agreement as a watershed, a turning point, which actually clears a lot of cloud. And the importance of this agreement, therefore, is very pronounced in the context in which it has come about. It is no gain saying that I must repeat that this is one of the first agreements with Africa. And Africa is a region which we all feel has not got adequate attention, but Your Excellency and Dr. Shikhar Reddy have very amply demonstrated how this two-way partnership will be a win-win situation to both. Not only, and this brings me to this question which Samir asked. When two countries sign an agreement, it may be an agreement between two countries, but the operational opportunities of trade promotion, FDI, services linkages is beyond those two countries and beyond the entities of those two countries. Just to let me explain. So if we have signed an agreement with, Mauritius, and Mauritius is part of AGOA, or Mauritius is, interacting with Turkey or even China or COMESA, all that actually immediately becomes relevant for those who from India, those who go to Mauritius and do something and adhere to the respective rules of origin and access those markets. Similarly, Mauritians also can come to India and they can meet rules of origin, and India's FTAs can be advantageous to them. So it's a win-win situation for the countries, but also entities. But there is a third dimension of entities. There are a lot of foreign entities working in India, and there are foreign entities in Mauritius. So when India and Mauritius actually sign an agreement, the rest of the world, which is present in India and Mauritius, also get connected via India and Mauritius. So we have to see this from a multifaceted perspective in the context in which it has come about. And I'm sure that this is going to be a bedrock and the solid foundation on which not only India-Mauritius relations and India-Africa relations at large that will flourish, but also Mauritius engagements with the rest of the world, and India's economic and trade engagements with the rest of the world will also flourish, in my view. And just the last point, I belong to the Eastern UP from Gorakhpur, and the Bhojpuri language that is spoken there, a lot of people are there with that language in Mauritius, and I am personally very glad for that also. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Professor Das. It was such a wonderful talk, and with the optimism that it is a game-changing agreement, and also a point very well taken that self-dependence can coexist along with the global interdependence. Very well said, sir. and this message should go to the entire community. Now, may I please invite Mr. Bipin Menon, Development Commissioner, Noida SEZ. He is one of the officers who was actively engaged in mobilizing this agreement and making a great success. So, Mr. Menon will also give a detailed account of the product and other things through his presentation. Sir, you may please begin.
Yes, Samir, thanks very much. Would you be sharing this screen or should I do that? Okay.
No, we will share.
Okay.
Please share the
so, thank you for this opportunity. I'd like to thank Your Excellency for that excellent synopsis of the opportunities available for Indian business to invest as well as trade with Mauritius. The outcome that Dr. Shrikar Reddy mentioned, I should really compliment Dr. Shrikar Reddy because the agreement was in a limbo for some time, but ever since he's taken over the Africa division, I think things have moved very, very fast. And it's because of his dynamism that this thing has really happened. And of course, as Professor Das mentioned, this is actually a game changer as far as this agreement goes, because it's after a hiatus of almost a decade that we have an agreement right now with a country. A new agreement, I would say, because we have also been working on the existing agreements with Chile and Mercosur. So I'll have a small presentation. I'll try to go as fast as possible. If you can just put it in the screen, this thing, that will be better, Samir. So first of all, I'll just take off from the fact that both the countries have a lot of major opportunities in both in terms of trade and investment. I'll first dwell on the Mauritius part because I don't have anything specific in the slide yet. Here in terms of the products that Mauritius could export to India or import opportunities that exist as far as India is concerned. You have marine products, you have fruits that were mentioned, basically lychees and pineapple, vanilla, cut flowers, sugar, beer, rum, wines. Of course, you can get intoxicated with the Mauritian products per se, apparel, pharma, paints, washing preparations, plastics, leather, and paper. So these are the products on which you can really look at sourcing from Mauritius. Again, as Your Excellency mentioned, there's a huge opportunity to look at Africa per se. And that's one of the areas that you'd also have to look at whether Mauritius can be a gateway to Africa, both in terms of exporting from India as well as sourcing from the African markets itself. Can I come to the next slide, please? So the Indian-Mauritius trade is, of course, it's gone down surprisingly over the last 2 years. I think it's primarily because of the overall situation. Also, I think a lot to do with the freight costs, which have suddenly zoomed up over the last year or so. But I guess this particular agreement gives us the opportunity to really kickstart us, get back to the 2018-19 levels, and maybe take it to a much higher pedestal than even that. The next one, please. The background, I think it's already been mentioned by Ambassador. It's about the Africa Continental FTA, which is almost finalized in terms of the rules of origin. It's been signed officially, but the rules of origin are still pending negotiations right now. There's a tripartite FTA between 26 members. The COMESA already exists, the East African Community Agreement already exists, and the SADC exists. So this is basically an amalgamation of all these three agreements when you're looking at a larger picture. And since Mauritius is part of both the Africa Continental FTA and the TFTA, the rules of origin being fairly liberal there, I think it becomes a great opportunity for trade with the African main continent. Next one, please. So if you look at the overall commitments that different countries, the different FTAs of Mauritius, we of course cannot reach the same category of the COMESA because that's a very deep agreement, and the Indian Ocean Commission too. But I think if you look at the other agreements that have been signed with the EU, Pakistan, the SADC, EU, Pakistan, Turkey, and China, I think we got a comparatively good deal in the overall context in terms of targeting around 312 lines. You have to keep in mind that Mauritius has only 400 dutiable lines. The other lines are all duty free. The next one, please. So there is a tariff asymmetry that exists, but I think in the overall context of the agreement, when you look at the numbers in terms of market access, this asymmetry has also been built up into the overall agreement. And if you largely see, Mauritius has a tariff structure where it has 5%, 10%, 15%, and 30%. duty structure on the dutiable lines. The numbers might be here and there because it depends on the year that we are taking. So when you take 2018, you have 401 tariff lines of Mauritius which are actually dutiable. But of course, now if you look at the current nomenclature, it's a bit different. So those numbers, I think, a minor changes here and there should not be confusing here. The next one, please. One of the great, I would say, the changes in this agreement is the tariff rate quotas that both of us negotiated. Very tough negotiations, and basically because to take into account the sensitivities of both countries, we finally decided that tariff rate quotas is one of the elements that could really be looked at. And it's a path-breaking thing because that's the way we could really provide market access by moderating all our domestic issues that we really had. So a number of tariff quotas given by India, for example, as I already mentioned, apparel, rum, beer, I think these are the critical ones. Specialty sugar, for example, also is a very critical one. And these are the things that you could really source. Of course, the Mauritius products don't directly compete with the Indian manufactured products because they're of a different pedigree or a quality. So therefore, they cater to a different niche market. And that's the way that we really managed to craft this entire TRQ per se. Next one, please. India's got market access into a number of products. I'll go into specifics later, but black tea, spices. There was a question on the chat box about the agricultural products that we could really look at exporting. Well, black tea, spices, these are the two things that you could look at. Of course, there is also beer other than another vodka, ODV, plastics, paper rolls, iron and steel, seats for motor vehicles, computer tables, furniture. So these are the products that you could really look at exporting into Mauritius. There are many tariff rate quotas also on this. So you'd have to accordingly look at how to look at those particular quotas and when to really fill in the quotas per se for those exports. Rules of origin, next one. So rules of origin, I'll just sum it up in a single particular slide. I know it's a bit more comprehensive than that. There's a wholly obtained criteria which is generally there in all the agreements. There's a value addition criteria of build up or build down. There are minimal operations, again a series of around 16 criteria. There's a de minimis, which primarily says that you can ignore a particular change in tariff heading or tariff subheading for a particular value of products. So if it's textiles and clothing, up to 7% weight, and for other products, it's around 12.5% value. It's basically a flexibility that is given for you to really meet the rules of origin. When you have a particular input which does not undergo the transformation that is required of the rules of origin criteria. So if it's less than 12.5% in terms of value, and for textiles and clothing, if it's less than 7% of weight, we can really get into, this particular facility could actually be used. There's a question about third-party exports. I think somebody just asked me a question about third-party exports. Well, there's nothing that bars you. The only thing is that whatever is happening in third-party exports would primarily be through the documents, per se. But you have to ensure that the value addition that takes place either in Mauritius or in India of that product meets the particular criteria. So just to answer that question, there's no bar on the third-party invoicing. The product-specific rules include the wholly obtained, the change in chapters, change in tariff heading, change in tariff subheading, value addition. So it's a comprehensive PSRs. Certificate of origin, it's in a prescribed format, and now you all know that it's electronically, you got to apply it electronically. I'll come to that in the next slide. The exporter has to obviously do his due diligence. He has to submit the minimum information. He has to maintain documents for 5 years and really be quite confident about the change in transformation or whatever the particular criteria of the rules of origin are. Next one, please. So you can apply it on a common digital platform. I'm not sure about what the Mauritian system is, but this is for the Indian exporter. So you have a common digital platform where you can file your applications for the certificate of origin. And there's obviously a drop-down menu when any of the agencies you can check out any of the agencies to really select any of the agencies to which you need to apply. Whichever agency gives you the best service, I think you should do that. It's a choice to the exporter. And of course, two things you have to be a bit, just on the software side, when you are working on this, one is that you obviously have to have a DSE certificate, a digital signature, which is class 3 or above. And the other thing is that there's an explanation on the platform itself. You need to download Java to really activate your particular system. So just those two things are the two technical issues that some people might face when they log into the system. Just remember that download Java and have a digital signature which is class 3 or above. Next one, please. So I'll go through this very fast. I've just given the general listing: black tea, pepper, fruits, vanilla. This is all according to the HS codes: cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, mace, cardamom, seeds of coriander, ginger, turmeric, mixtures of spices. These are all Indian exports to these countries. And therefore, there is a tariff. MFN is the customs duty as far as Mauritius is concerned. And the offer that they provide in certain cases, TRQs, in certain cases, immediate would mean immediate elimination. So, for example, in the case of pepper crushed or ground, if you're exporting pepper crushed or ground, the 10% gets down to 0% duty in Mauritius immediately. And if you see, we have a significant export, export to Mauritius, as well as a significant global export, which is very critical. So these are some of the products in the agriculture side. There was a question as to which are the agriculture products we should focus on. I think this is very critical. The next one, please. On processed food, there are things ranging from groundnut refined, cottonseed refined, coconut, palm oil, mustard oil, maize oil, a lot of beer, champagne, sparkling wines. Number of wines where GL over 5 years basically means that it is liberalized over 5 years in 5 equal cuts. So 15% goes down to 0% over 5 years. Champagne, for example, is immediate. That means you have an immediate cut to 0%. Beer and non-alcoholic beer both are in terms of a TRQ. So is other cane sugar, which is not for refining. So it's basically about specialty sugar. You have a 5,000 ton TRQ there. Next one, please. Wines, well, there's a range of them from fruit wines to vermouth to shandies, and then you have beer, you have some of the fruit-based alcoholic beverages like cider, perry, mead. You have fortified made wines, island wines. Of course, island wines are all specific Mauritian wines. Maybe many of our wine manufacturers here may not be able to really get into that market, but it's an opportunity for you, and that's the way you have to look at it. So you have a gradual liberalization over 5 years for all these products. Next one, please. So spirits, when I come to spirits, of course, there are something like brandy, cognac, denatured alcohol, whiskies, agriculture, rum, distilled gin, London gin, gin and Geneva, vodka. All vodka is, of course, in terms of some particular TRQ. So these are the products that you could also look at to export to Mauritius. Next one, please. So processed food, there are a couple of processed foods still remaining, which are basically spirit vinegar, some liquors, which is liquors and cordials, ODV, pet foods. Then you have tobacco. Tobacco, there's an opportunity. There are a lot of tobacco manufacturers in this country. The dentifrices, the soap manufacturers, of course, there are TRQs there, but I think some of the MSMEs could really look at utilizing these TRQs to export some of these MSME products like candles, matches, organic surface active products for washing skin and for cleaning also. And you also have refined salt and part of common salt. The next one, please. So there's a number of plastics. You'll be surprised that there's a lot of TRQ in plastics. Normally, you don't associate TRQs with plastics, but well, that's the nature of the agreement that we have. Mauritius, probably the Mauritian negotiators would have thought that it's fairly sensitive to really open up the complete plastic sectors, given our prowess in this sector. So we had to negotiate specific quantities there. Then there's obviously the things like school sachets and trunks and suitcases. So basically leather products, carry bags and other things, handbags, for example. This is also a market that you could really look at. If you look at the last product, there's a significant amount of exports happening there. So that's something some of the manufacturers could really look at. And Mauritius is a very niche market in terms of a very high net worth, almost 4 to 5 times the net worth here, per capita net worth. So I think it's something some of the manufacturers could really target with a lot of interest. Next one, please. Leather, wood, and vegetable materials, well, largely plates, basket work, wicker works, and other articles. These are things that also could be looked at, shopping bags, and certain products of wood, like breadboards and chopsticks. Well, these are where you have immediate access, and that's some market you can look at. I've also put the PSR at the end of it. I'll share this presentation. I've requested Sami to share this presentation. So the last part of it is the PSR, which is the product specific rule. So there are product specific rules for each of them. CTH or 35% would mean that either you have a change in tariff heading of the inputs that you use, or you have a 35% value addition for these products that you really export. And it could be a CC in certain cases that's mentioned, or it could be a CTH, or it could be CT, basically CC or CTH. Next one, please. Now we have handkerchiefs, bed sheets, and bed sheets. Basically, these are made of, articles of paper, pulp, and paper. Exercise books, a lot of paper products are there. Many of them have, I would say, TRQs. So that's something you'll have to build into your particular business model in terms of how we really export so much, whether you want to supply the rest of the products to Africa, supply limited products to Mauritius, or maybe store some products, do warehousing in Mauritius, and then possibly export to African countries later. That's a business model that really has to be looked at for each and every individual exporter. Next one, please. Made-ups. I think India has been pretty strong in this. So made-ups is an area that all of you could look at. Mauritius, of course, has a lot of market access in apparel. So that's one area that they, at one point of time, they were very, very strong in the apparel sector. But somewhere down the line, I think the competitiveness went out, because basically, I think many of the European markets, Your Excellency would be able to tell it better, but I guess maybe it's because of the market access that many of the other competitors got into the European markets and the American markets. But this is a sector where there is a lot of possibility of collaboration, given the strong prowess of both Mauritius and India in the textiles and the apparel and the made-ups sector. Next one, please. Yeah, Kapil, we'll be sending you the digital copy. That's why I'm going fast, because we are a bit short of time. So Samir would be sharing with you all this digital copy, and hopefully these slides would be useful for you. That's why I'm slightly rushing through. Made-ups, umbrellas, plaster, stone, and cement. I guess all these, again, you have market access into these into the Mauritian markets. Next one, please. Glass, iron, and steel. Well, lots of them. Iron and steel is also either this thing. So all these sections, the U, I, H, L, and T sections. All those access in across the board for all this multitude of iron and steel products that are there. Next one, please. Again, this is on iron and steel. There are some aluminum products also. You have those windows and frames. You have pots, scourers, and scouring, polishing products. You have kitchen, household articles. These are also part of the negotiations. Next one, please. Well, largely, I think some of the electric filament lamps, tungsten lamps that you have, arc lamps, ultraviolet or infrared lamps. These are also products which could be really increased. Sign plates, for example, there's a 1 ton. I don't know whether 1 ton really makes too much of a sense, but I think it was a bit of a sensitive sector for Mauritius. So that's the reason that we could get only 1 ton in that particular product. Next one, please. You have access on new vehicles and second-hand vehicles. Well, duties are not very high, just 5 to 10%. But yet it's an opportunity given the high purchasing power and the fact that India is good on the small and the mid-range vehicles. It's something that the Automotive Association and the Automotive Component Manufacturers Association would really have to look at. It includes also seats for motor vehicles. The next one, please. Last is, of course, the furniture. I think we have one slide after this also. So furniture, there is number of automotive furniture is there, as well as you have things about tables and say wooden furniture. And yes, Ravi Chandran Raghupati will be sending to you the digital copy. So other wooden furniture for office, all that also would be part of this agreement. The next one, please. Furniture, lighting, sports goods. Sports goods, I think it's very limited, basically swimming pools and casino tables and croupier rakes and poker chips and roulette tables. I'm not sure how many manufacturers in the country really do that, but that's the, I mean, if there are some manufacturers, they could really look at that. And there's of course the furniture sector, which is, and the electrical and the light fittings. We have a lot of units even in our zone, which manufacture these furniture and light fittings. And I think it could be a good sector to look at. Next one, please. I guess this is the last one. Yeah. So we have paints and distemper. We have pocket lighters. We have cigarette lighters. We have smoking pipes. All these are also part of the agreement. The next one, I won't dwell too much on this because I think Pralok is the services expert, but I just had one slide on services. So this is just a general listing about yoga and the Indian system of medicine and the fact that you have computer related services at 2-digit. I think Pralok will explain that in greater details. So I'll just stop at that, and we'll be happy to answer any particular questions. And thank you for listening out such a technical presentation. Thanks.
Thank you very much, sir, for your insight and very detailed presentation, of course, which I have already shared in the chat box, and it will also be emailed for those who have taken the registration. So for registered people, we'll email also the same presentation so that it will answer most of their question, I'm sure, if they go through it, and the trade will really benefit from your hard work. So looking forward to it, nothing can be complete without talk about the services in any agreement, because India do have a progress. So may I please invite Dr. Pralok Gupta, Associate Professor, Service and Investment, Center for W2A Studies, Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, New Delhi. Sir, I would like you to highlight how is this agreement in terms of the providing thrust to the Indian service exports, and Mauritius primarily is a service economy. How will it help in driving investment in India? Any other specific areas you would like to highlight will be welcome, sir. Dr. Gupta.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Push. Excellency Mrs. S.B. Hanumanji, High Commissioner of Mauritius to India, Dr. Shikhar Reddy, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Professor Ramupen Das, Head, Center for Regional Trade, Mr. Bipin Menon, Developmental Commissioner, SEZ Noida, Mr. Push, Director Media, TPCI. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you. And let me congratulate TPCI and also thank TPCI for organizing such a contemporary topic of this FTA between India and Mauritius, and inviting me to talk about services trade and the kind of opportunities that are there in the services between India and Mauritius in this FTA. So I start with giving a brief picture of services trade in India. So if we compare the data of services trade in 2019-20 last year, we have around 213 billion of services exports from India to the world. But our services exports are very limited to a selected set of countries. In fact, it is a common saying for our services exports that our services exports are highly concentrated in a few sectors and a few countries. So these few countries are mostly developed countries like US, EU, UK, Canada, Australia. So most of our exports are to that particular region, and very less exports to all other countries, including Mauritius. So from the perspective of existing trade, not much trade is happening in services from India to Mauritius or Mauritius to India. But having said that, it does not mean that there is no opportunity or there is a lack of opportunity. In fact, this is a very right time, very opportune time to remove a very big anomaly in our services trade. That is, we often criticize our services that our services trade is concentrated in a few markets. It's a very good opportunity to diversify the destination of services exports. And as mentioned by my previous speaker, that it gives a good opportunity not only to tap Mauritian market, but also to tap the entire Africa. And I am involved in the services trade and the negotiation right from 2012. And since then, this is a common, you can say, saying that India should explore African market, services export should be promoted to African markets. But nothing concrete has happened so far except this agreement now. So I am sure that this agreement will pave the way for increasing more services exports to Mauritius as well as to entire African community. On the aspect of what are the different opportunities within this segment, so as highlighted by Excellency, Mauritius has offered 115 subsectors. So there are around 160 subsectors in the WTO services sector classification list, out of different sectors like your business services or telecom services, environmental services, health services, tourism services, transport services, etc. So these are further divided into around 160 subsectors. So out of these 160 subsectors, around 115 has been offered, and 95 sectors have been offered by India as per the Government of India record. Though Mauritius has mentioned at 94, but Government of India mentioned at 95. So there is some discrepancy between the counting from both sides. Most of these sectors, Mauritius has taken liberal commitments, and there are opportunities for Indian service providers to tap a Mauritian market. And these are like audiovisual services. So in audiovisual services, we have sound recording or distribution of Indian motion pictures or post-production services. These are, we have a competitive advantage in these kind of services. There is a complementarity between India and Mauritius, and as Professor Ram Pendas has mentioned, there is a cultural and language similarity between the two countries. So Indian movies, songs, films, serials, they are very much popular in Mauritius. So there is a significant opportunity to tap this market in audiovisual services given the commitments. Then in professional services, again, like auditing services or different medical or dental services, there is again opportunity. But I will come to that point there, that may be constrained by this mutual recognition agreement, though there is a provision for having mutual recognition agreement in the agreement, but I will come what could hamper the progress in this matter. In R&D services, it is very important in this time, in the particular COVID time. So much R&D is happening on different aspects, whether it is health related issues or whatever food you are consuming or different aspects. So in that, there is a significant opportunity to collaborate between the two countries, to have clinical trials and other things. So that way, this is another area where we can have improved market access or good opportunity. One important sector is education services. And in education services, I know there are some Indian education providers in Mauritius already, like MIT University is there in Mauritius. So for other education services providers, this is a very good opportunity because Mauritius has taken commitments in education services for primary education, secondary education, for tertiary education, and also in mode 1. Mode 1 is basically providing services through online medium, which is of course now we all are dependent on online medium, and most of our official activities are happening through online medium. So this mode 1 is a big opportunity for Indian services providers, and we have a very great advantage being a IT superpower and having significant advantage in computer related services. So we can explore various services through this mode 1 from India to Mauritius, and Mauritius has taken very liberal commitments in mode 1, that is we can provide online services to Mauritius in various services. Now, apart from these services which are of very much importance to India and where Mauritius has taken liberal commitments, there are 3 other aspects which are very important as negotiating or from the Government of India perspective and also from the industry perspective. And these 3 aspects. One is the commitments for yoga and Ayush and Indian system of medicine. Now, from government perspective, this is a very traditional and very strong demand from India's side in all its negotiations. We know that very recently we have celebrated UN International Day for Yoga. So the world is recognizing the importance of yoga, but somehow many countries are not forthcoming in taking commitments in yoga. So that way, Mauritius has taken commitments in yoga. That's a good step, you can say, good achievement for negotiators, and it will pave the way for having this kind of commitments in other FTAs of India also. For our industry for service providers, now they can set up their yoga institutions there. They can send yoga instructors, yoga teacher to teach these classes, and also they can also provide these services like yoga, dhyan through mode 1 to Mauritian population. The second aspect is, which I was mentioning briefly, the mutual recognition agreement. So there is an inbuilt provision in the agreement that both the professional bodies in both the countries in selected services sector like medical and dental, veterinary, architectural, auditing and accounting services, company secretaries, they will negotiate mutual recognition of qualification agreement to recognize each other's qualification within 1 year of signing this agreement. So that way it's very ambitious that it has already given timeline of 1 year, and for rest of the sectors, this could be negotiated based on the request of each other's professional body. But that is a kind of theoretical thing. The practical aspect is a bit challenging and maybe challenging for both the countries. And what is that challenge is that based on the experience of our FT with Singapore, in spite of having good provision of mutual recognition agreement, we are not able to have mutual recognition of qualification agreement except for nursing services with Singapore, though there is a timeline, 3-year timeline prescribed in that agreement also. So there is a chance that the professional bodies may fall short of negotiating agreement, qualification recognition agreement. This is partly because this provision is not subject to dispute. So in case professional bodies in both the countries, they are not able to settle, or they are not able to seal a professional qualification recognition agreement, this will not liable any of the country for dispute. So this way it's a bit challenging. So then both the countries, they need to ensure that their professional bodies are very forthcoming. Then only both the countries would be able to recognize the gains in professional services of these selected services sectors. And the third aspect again is the movement of natural persons related provisions. These are annexed to Trade in Services chapter. So that is again a very strong demand from the government of India side, and which has been accepted. Otherwise, generally, these are kind of a separate chapter. Then there are some interpretation issues, and usually this movement of natural persons, they are integral part of trade in services, like in professional services, auditors, accountants, doctors, or nurses. So natural person movement is an integral part of trade in services. So if they are separated, they become independent, then there may be some interpretative issues. So it's a good thing that it is annexed with the trade in services chapter. So overall in services, it's a very good package, and from both sides, and Mauritian service providers will also have access to Indian service industry. It's a huge market, both from the population perspective as well as the growing middle class. We are the big consumer of different services, whether it's audiovisual services or health services or financial services. So it will be a good opportunity for Mauritian services provider also to tap Indian market. India has also given quite good commitment. Now coming to the second question of your regarding the investment, inward investment from Mauritius to India, I am a bit apprehensive that this agreement will result in increasing inward investment. We already have significant investment coming from India, in Mauritius to India, but that is a different story. I do not want to dwell on that issue. It is kind of round tripping or whatever. But solely because of this increased provision, because first, many Mauritian service providers may not have that technical capacity to invest in India or to provide the services at a cost-effective manner to Indian consumers. So that is one issue that needs to be taken into consideration by Mauritian service providers. On the other hand, I am very much hopeful that it will result into increasing outward foreign direct investment from India to Mauritius. And as I was mentioning before, that like in education services, there is already various education group in Mauritius. So similarly, many other service providers in education services, in audiovisual services, in computer related services, they will invest in Mauritius and then serve the Mauritius population as well as the African population. So my take is that it will result into increased FDI from India to Mauritius, which is again a very beneficial thing for Mauritius, because it will lead to increased economic activity and job creation in Mauritius. So either way, whether investment is coming from Mauritius to India or going from India to Mauritius, it will be a win-win situation for both the countries. So with that, let me conclude my thought that this is really a good agreement and very liberal agreement, and it gives good opportunity for the service providers in both the countries to tap each other market and make investment in each other's geographies. With that, let me thank you again and happy to take any question.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta, for your perspective, and especially the points which you highlighted, including the challenges. Hope industry must have benefited. Those who are seeing Mauritius as a market in service sector, they will really benefit from your talk. So we will come to now conclusion of the session with we'll take few questions. We have exceeded time. So for 5 to 10 minutes, we will do a question answer session. So my first question is to Excellency. Ma'am, how do you see this agreement down 5 years?
Well, as somebody said, that agreements are signed, but the secret is in the implementation of the agreement. As soon as the CECPA has been signed, you can see that we've set ourselves to task immediately, since we are trying to sensitize first the business community, be it the business community in India or the business community in Mauritius. And at one point in time, because I have established a sort of roadmap wherein both, the business sector of India can talk to the business sector of Mauritius. Well, because of the COVID situation, it could be virtual, but when there is an easing off of the situation, businessmen can move to Mauritius, actually, because those who haven't been to Mauritius have to see how the landscape is in Mauritius. What are the advantages? What is the infrastructure that's put in place for them to be able to set up their business? But I see that since there are lots of interest, the only factor that can hamper us or delay implementation is the COVID thing. But once this is off, I think businessmen from Mauritius can come to India, or businessmen from India can travel to Mauritius. And down the line, I don't see why the CECPA cannot be a full success. The advantages that are being presented to Indian businesses as well, for them to settle in Mauritius, the facilities, the incentives that are being given by the Mauritian government to Indian businesses is, none of its kind. It's the first time that Mauritius is opening up to businesses with so many incentives. So down the line, I can see that since Mauritius also is in a very difficult situation for the time being, the economic situation worldwide, India also, Mauritius also. So I can see that, we will both be in a win-win situation. Now there are certain products which have been mentioned. And I think, we've just, as I mentioned when I presented Mauritius, I mentioned about the pharmaceutical business. We have already launched 2 expression of interest for the pharmaceutical products, for setting up a pharmaceutical village in Mauritius. You've talked about a youth development, which is being given, much importance in Mauritius. And the fact that we can offer those facilities for Mauritius to act as a platform to Africa. So that's another advantage. So I think down the line, what we will need is that we will set up, I don't know whether my proposal can be accepted, but what I propose to do is that we set up a regular sort of communication between us and the business community in India. We can set up a joint public-private sector committee where we can, discuss about projects which could be implemented in Mauritius or which Mauritius proposes to send to India as well. And we can see how we can, if there are hurdles on the way, how we can, reduce those obstacles. I don't know whether I have replied to your question.
Yes, ma'am, you have replied to, and with the good note that this pandemic will end and the agreement will see the light of the success. Let me turn my table now to Dr. Srikhar, sir. Sir, may I ask you that most of the agreement which India signed with other countries have not yielded the desired fruit so far. Now, even this agreement has been seen, given a lot of optimism and hope. So how do you see, I mean, whether it will be a result will be differentiated from our earlier experience, because most of the even agreements are getting reviewed in the Commerce Ministry because of this reason. Now, if I talk about sugar, we already have surplus sugar and we are trying to find market. Now, duty concession, for example, I just gave sugar, duty concession for specialty sugar, and would it hurt Indian market? Your views, sir.
Maybe I request Sri Bipin Menon to answer this. He's the expert on. See, one thing I can say that it is wrong to say that the agreement which we have entered into earlier were not good for India. Sri Bipin Menon will explain more, but also a lead negotiator in goods also. Please, Bipin.
Shrika, you put me in a difficult position, but yes, let me say, at the end of the day, Samir, there are two things to be understood. One is about the fact that when we look at the relative size of the two economies and also the relative tariff structures, you're looking at a very limited set of lines which are dutiable in Mauritius. And therefore, this agreement has been a very, I would say, watered down in terms of the specific tariff lines and the number of tariff lines that have been given. So we cannot address each and every of our issues. For example, the sugar one that you said, we had surplus of sugar. I mean, the agreement is not to really dump our sugar into Mauritius or into Africa. That we have to look at different markets where we can really do it. It's about the comfort level of both countries in terms of the market access that they can get. On the overall FTA front, I think it's not correct to say that the FTAs have not benefited or FTAs have not done this thing. Because if you look at the overall data of FTAs, I've taken the latest data also, 21. Thankfully, one of the colleagues of Dr. Srikhar had shared this data with me. We still see that the percentage of overall imports under the FTAs is not very significant compared to our total imports. And if you analyze the composition of these imports, bulk of it is raw materials, capital goods, and intermediates. Now, again, you might have the question as to how do you classify what is a raw, bulk, what's an intermediate or what's a finished good? Something that's a capital good for a sector, maybe a finished good for the other sector. Well, I think given all those, give and take plus minus 5 or 6%, still the quantum of finished goods coming in FTAs is not very significant compared to the other inputs coming in. So take it in that spirit that FTAs are contributing to really giving you inputs for your domestic manufacturing sector. And it's complementary to your manufacturing process per se. Now, again, each FTA has to be looked at from a different perspective because each FTA has its own trade data. But I think overall, we need to look at strategic partners, credible supply chains, Mauritius being a very strategic and a partner for us, and obviously we would have credible supply chains from them. I think it makes a win-win situation for us to do an agreement with them. And it also opens the door for us to really have a larger engagement with Africa, which is, I think, very critical. That's one of the continents that we really haven't gone into and traded to the extent that we should. We have heard a lot of Indian businessmen going there and doing a lot of business there, but really in terms of the overall bilateral trade, it's still something which I think Shrikar has a lot of responsibility now to really kickstart that. So that's the way I'd like to answer this question. But of course, I've also gone away from the Commerce Ministry now, so I don't have the current thinking that the Commerce Ministry has on this.
Thank you very much, sir. And that clears the air that, as perceived or as per the media's reports, all FTAs have not been really bad, and a lot of inputs which are imported are used for the export and manufacturing processes. So in a way, I mean, we have the mutual access also in the same market, and need is to create those competitive products. Thank you very much, sir. So now let me see the questions from. My next question is to Mr. Professor Ram Upendra Das. How can this agreement be used to further deepen the relations with rest of the African countries? Could you highlight, and especially the investment part of it?
See, one of the ways in which Indians can benefit the agreements that have been in force between Mauritius and the rest of the world, within the region or outside the region, is to set up manufacturing facilities in Mauritius, which will be employment generating in Mauritian economy on one hand. On the other hand, many of the inputs or the products on which Mauritius has reduced its tariffs and committed to eliminate them in future should be harnessed. Just to give you an example, when India-Sri Lanka FTA was implemented, our own manufacturers of tires went and set up manufacturing plants of tires for automobiles, sourced the raw material, which is natural rubber, within Sri Lanka as a local input. Otherwise, they were importing from Sri Lanka or Malaysia and other parts of the world. And they sourced it locally. They manufactured the product in Sri Lanka, which became made in Sri Lanka. And then they exported back to India by taking duty-free advantage of tires imports into India. So they benefited from all sides, and employment generation took place in Sri Lanka. This was not enough. They made Sri Lanka as an export platform to export tires to the rest of the world. And most interestingly, because later on, Sri Lanka entered into an FTA with Pakistan, and that time under the 766 items that Pakistan used to allow from India, we could also legally export from Sri Lanka an Indian tire made in Sri Lanka, taking advantage of Sri Lanka-Pakistan FTA and access the Pakistan market in a most legal and genuine and economic way. So what I'm saying is, one agreement can actually galvanize, and it has to be seen from a multifaceted viewpoint, and also in a dynamic setting over a period of time. So I hope this provides your answer. And that is why I am one of those who have already held this view that FTAs in India, the way they are viewed in general are not to be viewed that way. In fact, FTAs have done a world of good, because both exports and imports, trade in goods and trade in services and FDI, these are all interlinked, and countries are interlinked, the partners are interlinked, the supply chains are integrated. So you have to see this in a broader context. And if you only want to export and then your exports will be imports of somebody else, and they will say that you are not importing, we will also not import. So I think we will have to have a very balanced and objective manner. Yes, it is possible that FTAs might have had some deleterious effects on some sectors where output contraction or employment contraction took place. For that portion only where there is a problem, we should have a safeguard. Otherwise, we should not throw the baby with bathwater. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this perspective, and hope it will clear the air once and for all to all the listeners that FTA might not appear win-win in terms of the trade figures, but in the larger perspective, it is always engaging, and it helps the economy to realize its goals. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now, may I come to Dr. Pulok Gupta. Sir, you have already given a good perspective of the services sector. So I really, our listeners really would like to know which are the areas India should explore to deepen the investment ties in Mauritius in terms of services engagement.
Okay. I have briefly mentioned during my intervention, but again, I am mentioning that at least in services like computer-related services, audiovisual services, education services, R&D services, these are certainly areas where India can deepen its ties with Mauritius by having more investment in Mauritius. Mauritius is a growing economy, services contributing significantly, almost 76% to their GDP. And now everything is dependent on the IT system, IT support. And India is having a very good IT capabilities. We are considered as IT superpower of the world. So that way it's a big complementarity between the two regions, and India can provide IT support and various value-added services in the domain of IT to Mauritius. They can set up their companies there. Apart from that, in various business services like consultancy services, whether it is technical consultancy or management consultancy, engineering consultancy. So these are the areas where there is a big complementarity between the two regions. So these are the areas, these must be explored for mutual gain of both the countries. And as I said, that this is not just gain for one country, because the gains for one country will be reflected in some way by increasing the capabilities of other country. And this is the beauty of services trade, that unlike goods trade, where there is an apprehension that goods imported from other countries may replace domestic domestic manufacturer, but in general, in most of the services, increased exports of services will lead to increasing your capabilities in services. So whether it is professional services, so they will contribute to your lower cost for other downstream maybe goods providers or services providers. If it is health services, it will help in increasing your healthcare facilities in your economy. Audiovisual services give rise to entertainment. Then education services, it will lead to more skilled population in the country. So these exports will help increasing the capabilities and productive capacity of Mauritian economy. So it's again I am using the same trade will be a win-win situation for both the country.
A win-win situation for both the country. With that note, thank you very much, sir. May I take up the last question with Dr. Srikhar Reddy. Sir, any other African market that you are actively looking for FTA or anything?
Yes, Samirji, as I mentioned during my remarks, so we are actively engaged with the Southern African Customs Union, which is a union of 5 countries: South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, Lesotho, and Eswatini. So now we are re-engaging with them. So already we want to quickly enter into a preferential trading agreement with the South African Customs Union.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So with the future possibility to engage more with Africa, let me take the opportunity to thank everyone and trade promotion of Council. Hope all the members and listeners will benefit from this session. It was also live on our YouTube channel, and will further leverage it to the best of the advantage of trade. and government have really done quite well by signing an agreement after a long time. And let's all welcome them and take the advantages of the agreement in furthering the trade. Thank you very much for time, everyone. Wish you all the best. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samir. Thank you, Excellency. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellency.
Thank you, Samir, and
Dr.
thank you,
Reddy.
Excellency.
Bipin.
Thanks, Shrikar.
Over.